So one of the things to think about when you're day trading on here, and I like to use my supply and demand zones for my entries. That's my particular style of trading that I like to use. Okay. So what I'll find myself as a day trader is there's not always going to be a lot of ideal opportunities, because in a fast moving trend on here, while I've got lots of quality levels that are forming on the way down, what I'm not getting are the pullbacks to these particular levels. So I could take a breakout style entry if I really want to, but I've got to make sure I'm not selling too low, as some of you guys rightly pointed out. So here's what we're going to look for. Here's a nice little technique on this. Is while it's good to you're going to have these opportunities to join the trend quite aggressively and get involved in the market, we have to, as intraday traders, make sure that we're not the last person to join the trend. Because if we're the last person to join the trend, we're going to be in a position where obviously we're going to be completely on the wrong side of the market. So what would I be looking out for? Well, guys, even though you may think a daily chart isn't going to necessarily be useful to you as a day trader, it's still not going to hurt for us to focus on where those major buying and selling activities took place. I want to draw your attention to the daily chart for just a second right now. Here we have a drop-based rally area demand zone. Now, the last time prices came here, we've got to ask ourselves a question of the last time prices here, we rallied from 152.50 up to our previous supply area at 155.50. So we've got like a 200 pip area where we've been trading between at the moment. We had a little bit of minor bouncing going on in this area, but now we've come to this area where this last major rally occurred from. Now, with this in mind, does it make a lot of sense for me to be aggressively selling on my intraday charts right now? If I go back to that 5-minute chart, does it make as much sense for me to be selling on this 5-minute chart to go with this current trend right now if I'm coming into an area here? No, it doesn't, because what we've got is a trend going on the daily chart. So we've got higher highs, higher lows, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. So while we've taken out this low, yes, we could be forming a brand new downtrend, couldn't we? We could be forming a new downtrend on here, but we don't know. So let's just think about the two different perspectives that we've got on here. The day trader is focused on joining the trend on the small time frames, which is perfectly fine, but still needs to be very aware of where that trend can end. And the last time prices were at the region of 152.50, we had a decent rally from this particular area, didn't we? Therefore, with this in mind, okay, exactly, 52.50 may support it and move it back up again. Exactly. So what could we do as an intraday trader? Well, we still need to require the patience on here. The intraday trader is going to have to wait for a signal. And what I like to do on here is I would want to wait for a series of higher highs and higher lows to start forming on a smaller time frame. Now, you've got it on a 5-minute chart. I'm going to go back to my 15-minute chart. So if I can start to see some of these levels, these higher highs being taken out on this area, that's going to give me a signal to think that maybe we're now going to be rejoining this current uptrend. I think one of the biggest challenges that we face as traders, I've always found as well, is, what really is the current trend? I mean, you can look at all different charts right now. You could say in this 4-hour chart, we're currently in a downward trend. Yeah, but we're a part of a much longer term uptrend, which is part of an even longer term downward trend here. So you've got a short term downtrend, a medium term uptrend, and then a long term downtrend. Yeah? This is exactly the challenge that we face, right? Because this trend here over this last couple of days is definitely down for the first part of the month, isn't it? This trend here, since the end of January and all through February, has been up, hasn't it? But then we've been in a much longer term downward trend since the summer. So now, how do we define trend? It's a great question on here, because no matter if you're going to be an intraday trader or a swing trader, the key things to understand on here are, okay, I need a clear signal when I should be a buyer and when I should be a seller. That's the most important aspect of all of this, isn't it? When should I be a buyer? When should I be a seller? That's really what I want to focus on. So let's take a look on here. Let's use one bigger chart to tell us, because the problem I'm not big into defining trends. You're not the first person to ask me, Boris, how do you define a trend? You're probably not going to be the last person either. For me, trend is always something that's already happened. Now, you can look at any chart and see a current trend going on. like we have right now. But there is no way I would want to get in the way of this area here. Right? There's no way I'd want to get in way of this level of demand because of what the prices did the last time they were there. So I'm not going to really know. My choice is, do I focus on the current downward trend that we've got on the short term, or do I focus on this intraday trend here? Well, if we can start to recognize levels of supply and demand, does it really matter? Does it really matter? So if we look, while we've got supply higher, and let's just kind of draw our attention mainly to this daily chart for a second, because it's just an easy chart to use out. And I'm going to blow this up. It's just a nice easy chart for us to use right now. I've got supply here where we had to drop from. I've got the demand here. What I've also got is another area here. See this area here? Which wasn't here before. See, there's a supply level here as well. See this little zone here? So now we've got a new level of supply formed right here that wasn't here before. Yeah, see that? So we've got this very strong move away where the selling pressure started. So now this tells me something. This tells me that I'm at a key point on the market where we've had a sell-off in price. We're coming back to a level of demand where we rallied from last time. And who's to say that we won't trade between these supply and demand levels until the market decides to go lower or higher? So what we're going to look for on here is we're going to expect a bounce in the region of 152.55. And if this area does hold, we're going to look to rally back up to around 153.50. Now, is there enough profit target there? Well, there's about 100 pips there. So we're going to expect that we could get a 100 pip rally. And then the question is, okay, what can we do at this supply level? We can look to go short again. And then the thing what we'll do on there is we can make a decision, use the opposing demand level as our profit target. See, what I like to do is use the opposing levels of supply and demand as my profit targets. Yeah? So this way, I'm not focused on joining just one thing, like I only want to focus on shorts or I only want to focus on longs. This way, I'm focusing on where should I be a buyer, and if this level holds, where will I take it up to? Supply. If this level of supply holds, where will I take it back down to? Demand. And I will play the trend between the major levels of supply and demand until those areas are broken. Because the problem you've got, guys, is we never really know when it's going to break, do we? We don't know. You know, how many times have you seen what you think is a trend continuing and it doesn't, and then it reverses again? Well, it typically reverses because it hits a major level of institutional supply or institutional demand. So as Ronaldo's asking me, when the price moves up, people are buying, so there's demand. When it's moving down, supply has already been met, so there's no more demand. Am I right? Absolutely. But we would expect, based on here, that there are a lot of unfilled orders in this demand zone. Why can we say that there are a lot of unfilled orders potentially in this level of demand right here? And there's a lot of unfilled orders in this level of supply. Well, we can make that statement because if the amount of people, if all the orders here, all the people who wanted to buy in this particular area, if all the people who wanted to buy in this area got their orders filled, price would not have moved away from this area, would it? If there are enough sellers to meet the willing buyers in this demand zone, what would happen to the price, guys? What would happen to the price? Anybody tell me? What would happen to the price if there were enough sellers to meet the buyers? It would have stayed there. You got it. Prices would have stayed there. They would not have moved. Exactly. Exactly. Prices would not have moved from this area. So the fact that just think about it. If there are 100 people willing to buy at a price, 100 people willing to sell at the same price, price isn't going to change, is it? Because all those people are going to do their transactions at that point. Likewise, how do I know that there were more willing sell orders than there were buy orders in the area of supply? Because prices fell from this area, right? There had to be more willing sellers than buyers here. Because if there were enough buyers to meet the sellers, what would have happened to the price? It would have stayed where it was. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a bet that if the price comes back to this area again, maybe some of those orders are going to be, maybe some of those area orders are still going to be there. How do I recognize mid-supply? I don't know what mid-supply is. I don't know what you mean by mid-supply, I'm afraid. I don't know what you mean as the mid-supply. Lower, you can't have supply levels lower. You can only have supply levels above price.